There must be a critic like me in every corner of the internet. I'm the guy who could give you my opinion. On comic book movies, art house indie flicks, if that's your thing, classic movies millennials may not be aware of, nearly anything within reason. Yes, sir, I'm a regular Roger Ebert. And that concludes my Morgan Freeman impression. Today is Stephen King's birthday. For nearly half a century, Stephen King has become the most prolific writer of horror/supernatural stories. And the majority of his body of work has been adapted both for the big screen and the small screen. Some are classics, while others, mainly the TV miniseries, are laughably bad.
Scaring the little girl!
And since this year, we had not one but two King movie adaptations released, one highly successful and one meh. I am going to talk about my favorite movie based on his work, The Shawshank Redemption. Based on the novella Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, the movie is about a man named Andy Dufresne who is sentenced to life in prison for murdering his wife and her lover. Even though he pleads innocent, he gets convicted due to solid evidence. He arrives in Shawshank Prison where he meets Red, a convict who knows how to get things for his fellow inmates. The two form a friendship, and the whole movie is about Andy making his life in prison easier using his expertise as a banker, while reminding Red of the importance of hope. On the surface, it looked like any old prison movie, and it had some very tough competition against other movies like Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, The Lion King, etc. So while it got positive reviews, it did poorly at the box office. But then, after receiving 7 Oscar nominations, it became a tremendous hit in video stores. I bought this VHS copy at Goodwill as a memento. The movie even took the #1 spot on IMDb's Top 250, and it still does to this day. I remember when The Dark Knight took the top spot when it first came out. Now it's at #4. Anyway, I was very curious about the movie after hearing how adored it was from almost everyone. And let me tell you, this film affected me like no film has ever done before. I was very immersed by the general themes of hope and friendship and the performances of the two main characters. Tim Robbins is fascinatingly terrific as Andy, giving a real sense of mystery to his character through his resilience to prison life, though he shows vulnerability at some points. As for Morgan Freeman, he delivers an exceptional performance and receives the most development. He shows true commitment to his role, even going as far as to throw a baseball for 9 hours and coming in the next day with his arm in a sling. But he gave no complaints whatsoever. The funny thing is, in the book, Red was originally a white Irishman, which definitely explains that seemingly throwaway line. But when someone suggested Morgan Freeman for the role, director Frank Darabont thought that was a great idea, and everyone loved that casting choice. Plus, what else can I say about his voiceover? His very rich tone is out of this world. He and Tim Robbins share a wonderful emotional connection with each other. From my perspective, I see Andy as a Christ figure in that he is the only innocent man in Shawshank amongst a bunch of sinful men, though there could be a few falsely accused men in the prison too. With Red, he calls himself the only guilty man in Shawshank and later finds redemption in his strong friendship with Andy. Speaking of which, you have the warden Samuel Norton, played by Bob Gunton. At first you think he's not that bad since he's religious, but later he becomes corrupted, setting up a money laundering scam with Andy involved. He doesn't want to risk letting Andy out of his scheme and even go as far as killing a young inmate named Tommy who had evidence of Andy's innocence. I like how in one scene, half of his face is in the light and the other half is in the dark, showing his true facade. Later, when Andy escapes the prison, he manages to outsmart Norton by mailing the dirty work of his money laundering scheme to a newspaper. And the look on Norton's face when he finds out he's been foiled is so gratifying. Life in prison can be extremely rough, but the movie presents an interesting contrast with the character of Brooks. He is the prison's librarian, but after serving 50 years, he is released, which makes him very upset. In prison, almost everyone made him feel at home, while the outside world was very alienating to him, leading to a tragic suicide. But if you are inmates with Andy Dufresne, he would make you feel like a free man, e.g. making a deal with the prison guard to do some tax work in exchange for some beers for a hard day's work tarring the roof. I never thought seeing some men drinking beers would get me so emotional, but the music by Thomas Newman is just beautifully magnificent. However, my favorite scene in the whole movie is when Andy finds an opera record and plays it over the PA system. It is a beautiful piece of music from The Marriage of Figaro by Mozart. And get this scene wasn't in the book, but it was a marvelous idea from the director. It left me deeply moved with its perfect display of the beauty of music. In the movie, Red goes through a similar predicament like Brooks, and at times Andy tries to reach out to Red with the undying idea of hope, but Red rejects it, thinking it's a dangerous thing. However, he makes a promise to Andy to find this spot that has something buried underneath for him if he should ever get out. From the very beginning, when we first see Red, we see him at his parole hearing, and even though he says he's been rehabilitated time after time, he gets rejected. But then, 2 years after Andy escapes, at Red's parole hearing after serving 40 years, he expresses indifference on whether or not the term rehabilitated holds any water in another great scene. This gets Red released, and unlike Brooks where we see him walk out of the prison from the outside, we follow Red out of the prison. Again, like Brooks, Red has trouble adjusting to the outside world. There's a great shot where he looks at guns at a window display, thinking about breaking his parole, but the camera pans to a compass, which is what Red ends up buying. He uses it to find the spot Andy mentioned before. Buried under there is a tin box with an envelope of cash and a letter from Andy asking Red to join him in Zihuatanejo and help him with his project. He also wrote, "Remember, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies." Red finds the strait to carry on and travels there where he reunites with Andy in perhaps the most beautiful tear-jerking ending in cinema. Originally in the script, Andy was going to say what he first said to Red in Shawshank. "I understand you're a man who knows how to get things." And Red says, "I'm known to locate certain things from time to time." But as Red said, some things are best left unsaid. And the way they smile at each other was just the perfect way to end this film, along with that very wide helicopter shot of the two of them embracing each other. This is, without a doubt, my favorite movie of all time. I had no idea what I would get, but I was totally blown away by the emotional power it had. And I thought I saw it at the perfect time, when I lost my mother after a long battle with cancer and was starting to become an adult. This was a real cathartic movie with positive and negative elements that managed to get better and better every time I watch it. And it led me to believe that the Oscars aren't legit anymore, since it got snubbed for every nomination it got. Now don't get me wrong, I love Forrest Gump too, but Shawshank had such a strong effect on me, since it was one of the first movies that succeeded to get me teary-eyed. In my opinion, a movie's impact should be measured by how much it is loved by you and me, and not by how many awards it's won. The last time I saw Shawshank was last year on April 1st when my Nana died. No joke. She was very special to me, as you can imagine, and I thought about watching this movie again, and it was just as emotionally riveting as I remembered. We all need reminders of our self-worth, especially in these dark times currently. Besides the movie, I got plenty of friends who lift my spirits up in times of woe. And I can only hope you all have someone like Andy Dufresne to keep your chin up and remind you to either get busy living or get busy dying. So overall, it goes without saying that The Shawshank Redemption gets my complete approval. Everyone, thank you so much for watching my review of my favorite movie. It was a real pleasure talking about it. You can go ahead and comment below on what your favorite Stephen King movie is. Join me next week when I'll be talking about Blade Runner to mark the release of his sequel, Blade Runner 2049. Y'all take care.